This is another episode of Dangerous Ideas. My name is Shawn. I'm an innovation strategist. What we do is we break down concepts and frameworks that will change your life. Oh, wow. Hey, everyone. My name is Shawn, and this is another episode of Dangerous Ideas. In this podcast, is what we do is we break down concepts and frameworks that will change your life. And we got a special guest in the building. We have Wang Yip, returning guest, one of my favorite guests on. Wang, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Wang, you know, one of the things I love about this podcast is that typically I bring the dangerous ideas, but what I love is that you always send me a note of some things that you are thinking about, some things that you're passionate about. You have some dangerous ideas. So you brought me a whole bunch of a list of things, and I love all of them. I sequenced them. That's the only thing that I did. And I would love to break it down. So the first thing that you actually put down was this idea of Scott Galloway, a professor at NYU, great thought leader. He's blown up over the last 5-6 years. He had this great piece of advice for people in their 20s. And can you tell us what that advice is?
Sure, yeah. So he's been doing his tour because he released a book, Algebra of Wealth, recently. And what he's saying is, so everybody is about work-life balance. You want to get work-life balance. You want to achieve financial freedom and things like that. And so his advice, and this is what he did, and he's not saying it's for everyone, but this is what he did, is in his 20s and possibly into his 30s, in order to achieve work-life balance in your later years, you have to work. You basically have to 100% work in your 20s and 30s, like outwork every single person, all your coworkers, your bosses, things like that, in your 20s, so that you can then get the work-life balance that you really want in your later years, your 40s and 50s. So that's his idea, and it seemed to be, I guess, controversial, but really that's a lot of Scott's ideas, I think, are controversial.
So wait, what do you think of this idea?
What do I think?
You agree with this idea?
It's an interesting idea. I'm trying to think. So in my 20s, did I work ridiculously hard? I mean, I would say that I worked hard. I don't know if I worked ridiculously hard.
Well, you were in consulting, so you did work.
I did work hard. Yes. Do I have kind of work-life balance now? Maybe. And I'm trying to just connect kind of my experience, because that's the only experience that I can really speak about. Did my hard work in management consulting lead to where I am today? Yes, it did. Absolutely. If I worked harder in consulting, would I have got farther today? I'm not sure.
Right.
So that's kind of where I'm not really 100%.
Agreeing.
Yes, agreeing.
So let me ask you another question. If somebody were to ask you, what advice would you give to somebody in their 20s? What advice would you give?
I don't know if I would say work ridiculously hard, but what I would say is, in your 20s, when you're early in your career, you really don't know what you're going to be building a personal moat around, really. And this, where's your competitive advantage going to be as you age, as you grow in your career, as you work more? So my advice to someone in their 20s would be to explore different things, different projects, different careers even, or different jobs, and just experiment, try different things, see what you like, see what you don't like, see what skills you kind of align with, because there are probably some things that you enjoy, that you like doing, and then there are things that you, of course, don't like to do, or maybe that you're not very good at, and figure out all those things in your 20s.
But do that ruthlessly?
I mean, I don't think you have to ruthlessly be efficient, but I will say that the more you work in your 20s, the more you're going to learn about yourself.
Right.
So
you mentioned this idea of personal moat, which I personally love.
Yeah.
I wrote this in my book, which is personal moat is basically your unfair advantage. It's what separates you from the rest of the world. It could be a skill, it could be an asset, it could be a community, it could be an IP, it could be something. A moat is basically when they used to build castles, they would build like these waterways like in front of the moats, in front of the castle, in order to prevent attackers from getting into the castle. It was a defense mechanism. And so I think really what you're trying to discover is something that you're world class at, that can really, that you can monetize, that you can, again, differentiate yourself from everybody else, which I think is really important if you want to have a sort of a sustainable career. Otherwise, you're going to be competing. You're always going to be competing with other people. You're always competing, but it's you want to be like in your own sort of monopoly.
Yes.
And that's the idea of personal moat.
Yes.
Let me just challenge the Scott Galloway advice and the idea
Okay.
of work-life balance for just a second. Because people always ask me this question too, like what advice would you give to people that are in their 20s? And I talk about this idea of building your personal moat.
Okay.
But so I just had a milestone. I just turned 40 last week. And I am working just as hard, maybe even harder than I am in my 40s than I did in my 20s and my 30s.
Okay.
And I believe that the same will be true in the 50s and 60s. I hope that it actually will be true.
Okay.
Because to achieve work-life balance for people that are very ambitious, like what does that even mean? To me, it's like, how can you be learn it, continue to explore, and why like in your 40s or 50s do you have to like have some sort of work life? What does that even mean that you're gonna have work life balance? That you're gonna what are you gonna do? You're gonna golf all day, and that's gonna bring you happiness. Happiness comes from when you continue to do things that push yourself outside of your comfort zone. So my hope actually when I'm 70 years old is I'm continuing to learn. I'm continuing to improve myself. I'm continuing to pick up things that I've never picked up before and new domains. Like that is what I hope for. I don't hope for like more work-life balance. I want to continue to pour my heart into my family, my relationships, my teammates, my employees, whoever it might be, and also things that I love. So I actually think, isn't the same advice that we should be giving to somebody in their 20s, 30, should be the same advice that you should be giving to people in their 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s? The idea that you should always be exploring, experimenting, putting love into the people that are around you. Like, why is the advice different? I'm just curious. Like, I don't know. What do you think? Why is the advice different than what you should be doing in your 20s?
Yeah. No, well, I think your concept of work-life balance changes over time, right? In your 20s, you don't have those commitments. You don't have very few people have or are in committed relationships at that point. They don't have a family. They don't have a mortgage. So they do have that opportunity to explore more. And I actually wish in my early years as a consultant that I did more international projects. I turned down, there was one project in Singapore, I remember turning it down, or not turning it down, but not raising my hand for it. But I kind of wish that I did raise my hand because it was about travel, it was about getting exposure to a global company, and just having that opportunity would have really helped just expand my perspective and my horizons there. But, as you grow older and as you get into a committed relationship, as you have a family, as you have things like a mortgage, I think your idea changes of what's important to you, because maybe early on you think, I need to work as hard as I can. I need to get as much money as I can, rise up as quickly as I can in the company. And then later on you go, well, man, is it really that important to be a CEO or be a VP or something like that at a company? Is it really that important compared to the other things that I have in my life, right? A family, relationships, kids. So I think a lot of people's priorities change, and therefore their concept of work-life balance changes.
Well, of course, everyone's lives change as they get older. Yeah, when you're younger, you have more time. You don't have a mortgage. You don't have kids. You're not maybe not in a committed relationship. Maybe you can do more. But when you get older, you get better networks. You have more money. You have more experience. So that means you should take more risk. You should explore even more, because your surface area for making a dent in the universe becomes greater, because you just have more knowledge, more experience, more networks, more everything. So to me, it's like, why are we're always changing. The circumstances around us, no matter if we're in the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, it always changes. So why does that change our mindset moving forward that, well, I got to work as hard as I can in the 20s and 30s so that I can get this amount of money so that I just think that that's just a bad way to go. I don't think that's a right way to go with life. Like, otherwise you're going to be in your 40s and 50s and 60s, which I see it a lot, where they've checked out. They've completely checked out. They're like, yeah, I worked hard. I don't need, and then, when you check out, your life is on a downhill. You start getting ailments. You're not like putting work into your body, into your relationships. You start to break down. And there's always going to be change. I'll give you an example of this. I was on a call yesterday with these folks that work in government.
Okay.
And they told me that, this is people in Ontario. And they're like, there's like an election coming soon. So, when the election comes around, in the public sector, it's like pencils down, for like a number of months. And, there's probably pencils down for the time afterwards.
Yeah.
And I asked them, why? Why is it pencils down? Why? Because there's an election coming that we're now pencils down. They're like, well, there's a lot of change that happens. Yeah, there's a lot of change happening all the time. There could be a hurricane. There could be AI. There could be new technology. There could be new people coming into our organization. The minister could die. The ADM could die. There could be new roles. Change is happening all the time. So how do we build a muscle around change and continue to change ourselves so that when change happens to us, that we're flexible enough to deal with that change? I hate this idea that, we have to put pencils down because something is happening. No, don't work ruthlessly hard towards your mission. And if something changes, fine, you have to change, but at least you're ready for it and you're constantly ready for it.
So as you're talking, there's this idea that I saw from Ryan Holiday and Robert Greene, and they were talking about alive time versus dead time. Have you seen that video? So this idea of alive time and dead time is exactly what you were saying. Is you could either kind of go with the flow and there's going to be lots of changes, and so I'm not really going to do very much because I know that it's, I think what they're thinking is, all the work that I'm going to do, well, there's going to be a new ADM or a new director or whatever it is, and they're going to say, we're going to move in this direction now. So all of my work that I did is going to be irrelevant or not useful at all. Now, Robert Greene, what he's saying with the live time is make every day, make every week useful in some way to yourself so that if change happens, like you said, it doesn't matter if all of your work is kind of made irrelevant, but you've still built up the skills, you've still built up that experience, maybe those networks in order to adapt better to that change. And use that time usefully, really. Yeah. Instead of just kind of going, I'm just going to go with the flow. I'm just going to do whatever. So I think it's that idea of not seeing things as dead time, which is more passive, but seeing that time. So even though, yes, there's going to be an election, there's going to be maybe a shuffle in the cabinet or whatever, but seeing that time as, hey, I can make this time useful and I can still make it valuable if I focus on the right things, if I focus on doing the right things. Yeah. Right. And maybe, I love that. Yeah. Maybe it's still doing the work, but maybe it's building those skills at the same time. I agree. Right? So that the skills aren't irrelevant, even if the work changes. I should have said that on the call yesterday. But by the way, they agreed with me. They were like, awesome. Actually, they said, you know what? That makes sense. You should tell us that when you come there. I'm like, yeah, that's what I'm planning on doing. Okay. This relates a lot with another dangerous idea that you brought, which is idea of exploration versus exploitation. Now, this is one of my favorite concepts, but can you break down this dangerous idea in context of the book Range by David Epstein? Sure. So the idea itself, I think it's been explored by lots of individuals, but where I kind of learned about it, and there's actually a nice rule of thumb, I learned it from Kevin Kelly, and he has a book called Excellent Advice for Living. So he talks about this idea between exploration and exploitation and how much time you should actually spend in both. So his recommendation is you should spend 1/3 of your time exploring and 2/3 of the time exploiting. And I think it's pretty obvious, but I'll just spell it out. You don't want to spend all your time exploiting because you might not be doing the best thing. and you don't want to spend all your time exploring because you'll never find, you might pass over the best thing and then not realize it. So anyway, so this 1/3, 2/3 rule is awesome. And what I was thinking about is, and again, applying it to the career and to range. So the main takeaway that I got from Range by David Epstein is it doesn't hurt you to explore and have different careers. So there is this idea, I think, in the past, and I think I kind of thought the same way too before Range, is we should spend all of our time doing this one thing and being a master at it, being really, really good at it. And so, whatever that was for you, if you're like a programmer, spend all your time doing programming or doing computer stuff, or, you're whatever it is, a golfer. So you're spending, from the very early ages, golfing, practicing, and just doing this one thing. But the idea from Range is there are two kind of successful models, and you don't have to specialize in order to be world-class at that skill. And it turns out that specialization even hurts you when you're encountering certain games or situations where there isn't like a set definition of rules or answers or even feedback in the game. So David talks about this idea of wild problems, where these problems are, maybe you haven't encountered it before, you're not really getting feedback, you really don't know what the right answer is. And in those situations, specialization actually hurts you because you have a narrow set of mental models and tools and frameworks that you use on the problem. And when those don't work, then you're stuck.
Yes.
Whereas if you're more of a generalist, you have a wide range of these tools and frameworks that you can kind of use to tackle the problem. And those wide-ranging sets of tools actually help you because it helps you draw knowledge from different industries and different areas. So back to the concept of the career, what I was thinking is, and just like that personal moat, explore more in your early careers, because it doesn't hurt you to have these different jobs. In fact, it could even help you as you get into whatever your personal moat becomes. And so even let's just apply it to your kind of career, and I'm just gonna do a little bit of a case study here. I think
I like this. Okay.
All of your experiences as a consultant, being an accountant before, help you in your role as a professional speaker, as an innovation strategist, because you can draw from all of these different areas, from all of these different tools to build on that experience. If someone was just being, I don't know, someone as an innovation specialist, or they were just a consultant for 20 years and then they got into this professional speaking role, they wouldn't necessarily have the same experiences as you, right?
Right.
So,
well, I think for me, it's like, what's really helped me throughout my career is exploring different realms. So like I started like this, I started building mobile apps with friends. We built a whole bunch of apps. So I understood UI, UX, development, code. I got into video. So like, everything that I do right now is like, there's some video element of it. So filmmaking was such a big part. So tech, video, consulting, helping clients, workshopping, being in front of clients, persuading, convincing, which is like what speaking is all about. So you combine all these skill sets together, and just going deep in all these, you develop skills. Mm-hmm. And I'm not the best speaker on the planet. I'm not that articulate. I'm not that clear. I'm not the best video editor on the planet. Sure. I'm not the best coder. I'm not the best technologist on the planet. But because I've developed all these skills, I've developed my own personal moat, my own competitive advantage, because I'm decent at all these different things. And because of that, it gives me a differentiation against other people, right?
Sure. Yeah.
But this idea of explore versus exploit is actually, I think, counterintuitive, and it's actually against the idea that Scott Galloway had, which is work as crazy as you can in your 20s and 30s so that you can have work-life balance later. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because there's some great research by by this guy named Deshaun Wang and his team at Northwestern University. I put it in my book because I think it's the best innovation study that I've ever seen. So in 2021, this is some work that they've been doing for over a decade. Deshaun Wang and his team want to understand this one question: what creates career hot streaks? Why is somebody so prolific, so innovative during a short period of time? They looked at artists, scientists, all these different creatives. They use artificial intelligence to analyze millions of pieces of work. And what they discovered is that the secret as to why some of these people are so innovative during a short period of time is that they explored and they exploited. Exactly what you said. Right? So they created their own career hot streak because they went through this thing that Kevin Kelly said. They exploited, they explored, they exploited. Great. Fine. Go explore and exploit. The one piece of research that I think is really that no one picks out when they pick out this piece of research is that they said that most people only have one hot streak. And it usually happens for like, a 5-year span. And I'm like, well, that sucks. That sucks that your entire career, your entire life, you have one hot streak. Why can't you have multiple hot streaks? Why can't you have an Arnold? I'm the best bodybuilder in the world. I'm the best professional actor on the planet, and I'm the best governor on the planet. Why can't you have multiple hot streaks and be able to go down the mountain, go up again? And I think it's the ability to think about your life in chapters, right? And it's thinking about your life to say, I'm not just going to work my ass off in my 20s and 30s. I'm going to work my ass off in 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Continue to explore. Always explore. Always find what the next thing is. Always follow, new skills and new passions. And that's what a fulfilling life is. It's not just like working hard in 20s and 30s and, that's what I believe. But so I think it's it contradicts Scott Galloway's idea.
I don't know if it contradicts, and maybe we're reading too much into his like one takeaway without all of the context. I don't think he's saying don't work hard in your 30s, 40s, and 50s. But I think what he's saying is his path, and that's one path that you could take if you want whatever your definition of work-life balance is. But in this case, I think what he means is being wealthy, like not having to work if you don't want to. If you want that, it's for him, he needed to work ridiculously hard in his 20s and 30s.
Right.
To get
Got it. That makes sense.
Right?
But is that a fulfilling life for people? Like just being wealthy at a certain age, is that, I guess for him that's fulfillment.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
if we and the next dangerous idea is talking about regrets, and we talked about this in another episode. It's like when you go to the people that are on their deathbed, not a single person ever says, "Oh man, I wish I had way more wealth." Right? It's always about family, friends, and doing things that you love. Like, oh, I wish I took that risk. So actually, if we're optimizing for those things, if we all agree, let's all have an agreement on something.
Okay.
We all agree that at the end of your life, that you should have amazing friends and family that love you, that care for you, that you have you don't have any regrets around your career, and that I wish I should have taken these shots. I wish I should have done. That you should always continue to take more risks. What else is there? Like, those are the two things, right? Like, that people have regret the most.
Yeah. Okay.
So if we're in agreement on that,
so if we're in
agreement on that, then your life should be optimized to say, how do I spend more time taking risks and pouring love into my friends and family? And I should be doing that in my 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, not just like working hard during these particular areas so that I can accumulate more wealth. So what I'm saying is that Scott Galloway's, I know I'm reading into it too much, but it's like that advice is counter to the hot streak advice, and it's counter to the advice of people's biggest regrets.
It is a little bit, but I mean, I think we both come from, we're financially stable. We don't have to worry about money. And would you agree that having more money gives you more options?
Yes.
So I think that's what people are thinking about, though, right? Is in their 20s, when you just come out of university, maybe you're in debt, you really don't have a lot of money, but you have a lot of time. And so that's why I think Scott is saying you just got to work, because you have way more time than other people, right? Your bosses, they have families, they may have commitments with their kids, whatever, practices, hockey, whatever. But you don't have that many commitments in your 20s. So your competitive advantage in your 20s is spending way more time on work than other people can do, right? And so I think that's where his advice is coming from, is that is where your advantage is in your 20s.
Right.
As you get older, hopefully that insane work ethic has translated into something, right? Either a top tier position, or you started a business, or whatever it is.
What do you regret?
What do I regret?
Yeah,
in my 20s?
20s, half of your 30s. What do you regret?
Like career-wise?
Yep.
You mean? I wish I would have taken a few more international assignments and international projects. It would have been nice to just have, I think, really quickly, and maybe this is just maybe there was just the office and consulting. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but it was all about trying to find, what are you good at? What is the market going to pay you for? And what do you like doing, right? It's that intersection of those three things, and really landing on that very quickly in consulting, because without those three, I mean, it's really hard to sell you on projects, right? And the only thing the firm has to sell is your time. So landing on that really quickly was really important. But as a result of that, your exploration time was cut down a little bit. So I would have liked to just explore more projects, kind of figure out, hey, like, this is pretty cool. Like, I haven't done this kind of project before. Not shying away from things that
maybe hard,
or you didn't know, right, how to do. Because I think you always naturally tend to go, oh, I know how to do this project, so I want to do this project, right? Because I know how to do it, and I know like the answers, or I know what the client wants. But I definitely shied away from other projects where I was like, I have no idea how to do this, really don't know if I can add value or if the client will like me. But those are the exact projects that people should do, because those are the things 100%. that where you learn the most, right? You're not going to learn the most from projects where you already know how to do them. So
it's funny that you talk, literally right before you came here.
Okay.
I had a call with Deloitte, and I'm doing something with them at the end of the month, and I've done some stuff with Deloitte before.
Yeah.
Just speaking engagements and stuff like that. We're talking about how generative AI is going to be changing what they're doing in professional services. And I'm just reflecting all the things that you're saying. And I'm actually speaking to their talent group. So all the people that are focused on the talent and what we can get the most out of their talent in the world of generative AI. Mm-hmm. And I found, number one, I found it refreshing that they're hiring me and they're paying me to yell at them for 90 minutes, which is amazing. And and yelling them, on this call for 60 minutes on what they could be doing with their talent. So I find just the fact that you're mentioning that, and they agree, they want that too, right? They want more of their people to explore and take risks. And I believe the same thing. Like I think my biggest regret is I don't think I surrounded myself with more people like you throughout my career. Like I wish I was surrounded by, what was amazing was like, just being at the firm, you're surrounded by A players.
Yes.
But I wish I had more friends that were A players. And I love my friends. They're amazing. They're incredible people. And I have the same friends that I've had. But they're not all like, and we never talk about work or anything like that.
Yeah.
I never really did that. And I still actually really don't do that, which is people that are like, they're thinking like, they're trying to think like I am. I wish I took way more risk too. Like I wish I started my brand earlier. I wish I took more risk. I wish I had the courage to continue to like meet more people, meet more strangers, take more risks. Get into situations that I never have been part of. I did that a little bit,
right.
But I think I could have like I've done that a little bit more.
Right.
And so that is a regret. I'm like, oh man, like I am so grateful for where I am right now, but I'm just like, I wish I did a little bit more of that. And I'm not down about it, but it's like, that's the advice that I would give is like, take more risk.
Yeah.
And you realize it. I think what you realize is that, you know, you only have this in when you're older. It's like, oh wait, like a lot of those things that I was worrying about in my 20s or 30s, because I didn't want to take a risk, or maybe because I was afraid of what people thought about me, or I was afraid of like losing my job, that the reality is there was way little downside.
Yeah.
Like,
true.
You know what? There's way more upside to taking risk than downside.
Yeah.
So, so yeah. I want to switch topics a little bit.
Okay.
I want to move to my favorite topic, which is around AI.
Okay.
Because I just, you know what I do? Like, you know, that idea of like 1/3 of your time. I spend 1/3 of my life just like playing, building, coding in AI in different realms.
Okay.
And I love it because it's changing everything. And, you know, you're a writer, incredible writer. You asked this dangerous idea around, will AI change maybe the nature of books, how we write, how we read? Are books relevant anymore now in a world of AI when anybody can write something compelling because of AI? What are your thoughts? You brought the dangerous idea, so I want to know what your thoughts are.
Yeah. So I was just thinking, I heard about this, Google Notebooks,
Yes.
the LLM Notebooks, and you shared a link as well to me. And I took a look at it, and you know what's interesting to me is...
Do you want to explain what Notebook is? Or?
Oh, sure. Yeah. I'm not as well versed in AI as you are, but I'll try my best. What you do is you upload documents, and it could be reports, it could be presentations, it could be whatever kind of information you have. You upload that. Google Notebook, they have a language learning model inside and their own AI. They take those notebooks and then they use AI to draw out key information.
Yes.
So it could be summaries, it could be maybe you're crafting a whole bunch of like a report. So you have a whole bunch of different case studies and presentations that you're trying to cobble together. So it just takes all of that and puts it all together and kind of brings out kind of the best information.
And the coolest part is they'll generate like a podcast.
From the audio.
So they'll generate a podcast based on the information that you provided.
Yes.
So I just gave it a script of my keynote, and it's cool to just see them break down the keynote and talk about it as if it's like a show after my keynote, which is kind of
interesting.
Cool. But
so then that means that in combination with your avatar, you really don't even need to be there.
I don't. I could just
generate
you know what I do?
The video script.
You know what I do with my keynote? So like at the beginning of the keynote, I always tell them this, is that, listen, you don't have to take pictures of these notes, of these slides.
Okay. Yeah.
The slides will be available.
Yeah.
There'll be an AI summary of the presentation.
Right.
So it's already provided.
Yeah.
There's an AI transcript that's already cleaned for you on this.
Yeah.
And then this next edition I'm going to add, it's like there's a podcast of two people dissecting this keynote afterwards and just like talking about the takeaways and insights and funny things that happened during that keynote. So there's like an after show already.
Okay.
I'm going to add that.
Okay.
The first three I'm already doing. So
okay.
yeah, basically everything is done. Basically, they don't need to see anything. So, anyways, we're talking about AI, the ubiquity of information and its impact on content, the world.
Yeah. So I find it interesting that AI is in this space. It's writing. People are already writing books with AI or whatever it is, doing documents, things like that. So I still think this is my opinion. I still think there is value in physical books, and whether it's a physical book or an ebook or whatever it is. Now, the value that I think that comes from the book is not from the data, but from contextualizing that data to your own circumstance.
Yeah, making it more personal.
Yeah. So there's always this. So I remember reading. This is a long time ago. This is before AI. Everybody in the world should be a millionaire, have a six-pack, and just have like great relationships. The knowledge is not the problem, right? Having that knowledge. Everybody knows, if you ask them, how do you be a millionaire? Well, you need to save, you need to invest, you need to, just do that basically consistently. How do you get a six pack? Diet, exercise. Like, that's not a secret. But to take action and to do that and have that discipline to do that every single day, I think that's where having a book, contextualizing it for yourself,
Right.
and making it personal to yourself, that's where the value comes from, right? And so AI is surfacing all of that knowledge for you, and it's great. It's easy, but you still have to take action, right?
Yeah.
That's where the value of the book comes from. People don't buy your book, I don't think.
No, they don't.
To be,
No, it's okay. Yeah.
I mean, to be,
Yeah.
they're not buying the book and then saying, I bought Shawn's book, now I'm automatically innovative. They have to take action. They have to take the things inside your book and do something with it, right? So AI can do all that stuff. They can surface all that knowledge, but just because you have that knowledge doesn't mean you are that thing. You are innovative, you are healthy, whatever it is. So, and where I see I still buy books, even if there's ebooks and, AI can even, surface that knowledge for me. I still buy the books because that act of reading is tough. It's hard.
Yes.
You want to go through that activity, that exercise, because it makes you appreciate, and it makes you contextualize the knowledge as well. But it makes you appreciate the fact that you are using your brain to kind of think through these things and trying to figure out, and that is part of taking action too, right? Is how do I use this knowledge? Where is it relevant to me? Where do I disagree with some of these things, right? And that act actually makes it, right, more useful to you. And those are the things that I don't think AI can really, at least right now, can't really do for you. Right?
And I think that's the future of AI. I think AI is going to be way more personalized. It's going to know us way better. So it's going to be able to take that book that you read on range and say, okay, David Epstein talked about all these aspects in range. How does this actually apply to what I do from a day-to-day basis? How does this apply to, how I'm thinking, how I'm acting from a day-to-day basis, and contextualizing, because the AI will know us better than we know ourselves. And then it will take that information and apply it. I mean, you still have to go off and make some of those things happen, but at least AI will spoon feed you that at some point. And this is why I continue to say that knowledge is no longer power. Like, listen, I mean, this podcast has knowledge in it. You don't need to watch this. You can just go to just go to OpenAI or anything and just ask it questions about career, hot streaks, whatever you want to do. It will give you that. But the differentiator is like people that can go off and fight the status quo, that can be innovative, that can be bold, that can go off and execute at the end of the day. Like, that is actually what's power today. Knowledge is no longer power. And to your point around the idea of writing, I mean, I think you still need amazing writers that can move you.
Yeah.
I try to give people the analogy of they're like, well, if everyone can write really well because of AI, then is it going to lower the value of writing? My belief is that actually it increases the value of writing. Good writers, exceptional writers. Will AI, to me, AI is disrupting writers a lot now and disrupting coders. Like, it can code almost just as well as a really good coder.
Sure.
Does it mean that we still don't need coders? No, it means that we need exceptional coders. And the analogy that I use is like through the phone. Okay, so I have my phone. Because of the phone, billions of people around the planet can now take a really good photograph. So do you still need photographers? Yeah. You actually need amazing photographers.
Sure, yeah.
Everyone in the world can take video. Do I still use videographers? Yeah. Because you need somebody that actually understands the tool and can use it well and can create a very compelling picture and video, right? Even though that these things can take 4K, whatever, you still need an expert. And so when it comes to writing, is that I think there's still going to be writing that moves us, that makes it personal, that, that will always exist. It's just the game has become way more competitive because now everyone can be a great writer, just like how everybody can be a great photographer. So it's funny when everything becomes abundant, what happens is that the value of that thing usually goes down, but it gives more value to the things that are great. Do you know what I mean? So the photographers, I'm trying to think about something else that's abundant. You know, when everybody can be an influencer through content, and everybody can put out ideas, the best content influencers, they're the ones that sort of stand out.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just curious on your end when it comes to AI and professional services. I just yelled at Deloitte for an hour on this.
Yeah.
And just you being in consulting, seeing where AI is now and how good it is.
Yeah.
What do you think the future of consulting looks like?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So not having been in consulting, mind you, I don't know if things have changed. But I started my master's, trying to go through the assignments and things like that. AI is obviously a very integral part of all of that stuff. And a lot of the work that we're doing as assignments is really consulting work for free for certain organizations. Anyway, that's a different point. But what I'm finding is AI accelerates all of the let's call it grunts work, right? All of the research, you're looking at trends, you're looking at case studies, you're looking at all of that kind of stuff. You're trying to pull together all of this data so that you can then make a recommendation.
Current state analysis, I would say.
Exactly. Yeah. Even the future state analysis, maybe even. So anyway, it accelerates all of that stuff. However, where AI isn't yet, and maybe they are there, I'm not sure, is again contextualizing that for the clients. And I think what's difficult about change, it's never about the data, it's never about the processes, it's never about the technology. It's always the people, the component that's always the hardest thing, right? And so how do you bring people along as part of that change, right? And that's, I think, where consulting firms will go.
Yeah.
Is, yes, we've done all of this work. This is what the data shows. This is what you need to do. How do we actually get you to do this? Right? And that's where I think, like, how do you sell this to the executive? How do you get people to buy into this idea, all these conclusions? How do you actually take the first step into implementing whatever it is that we've recommended? I think that's where consulting would go.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I think it's what I said was that there's this like framework that we used later, which was imagine, deliver, or imagine, run, deliver, which is like you're imagining what the future might look like. Mm-hmm. You're trying to deliver, you're trying to run like a prototype or experiment or something, and then you go off and deliver it, you implement it, you help them maintain it, etc. Well, what's happened is that those first two phases of like not only imagining, you can imagine a million end states for them, figure out all the current state analysis, do all the research, and then you can also run prototype. If you want to build something, you can run the prototype, you can run the design, you can run whatever. But what you can't do is like, you can't deliver. You need to hold their hand. You need to inspire. You need to do all those things to move them forward. And I think consulting is going to be way more about that last piece, which is about like, how do we hold their hand? How do we continue to inspire them? How do we push them along the journey? Which is, that's what change is all about. Mm-hmm. It's about moving people to the outcome, basically. And it's really, really fascinating because there's $1 trillion industry that was always based on having the smartest person in the room. I don't know how to do this thing, so come bring somebody with a really nice suit and a briefcase to come here and tell me what to do. That was the business model for so long. And now that person is no longer the smartest person in the room. Now AI is the smartest person in the room. And by the way, the client has that and the consulting person has that. Yep. So if we both have the smartest people in the room, what do we do now? Well, we don't need somebody that's smart anymore. We need somebody that can inspire and hold people's hand. It's nuts.
So you had a question, actually. So when I sent over my notes, and this is why I enjoy just chatting with you in general, you had this question about what skills do people need now if AI is going to do all this stuff, right? Do we need even consultants anymore? And I would argue that the skills that we need not only to interface with the technology, right, but to know exactly what prompts or questions to ask. I think that's the skill that, at least right now,
I don't
that's
think
what
so.
people.
I disagree with you.
You don't think so?
No. The idea of coming up with the right prompts, the AI will figure out the right prompt for you. I'll give you an example of this. I use Claude all the time.
Yeah.
Or Perplexity. They're two AI.
Sure.
Literally comes up with like 5 or 10 amazing prompts that I would never have thought of. It looks at the scenario in different directions for me. So,
but how did you know to ask for that prompt?
you could start with a base level prompt. Like, I'm kind of thinking about this.
And then you
that,
say,
and then
improve this prompt.
No, it just comes up with the best. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't even think about it.
Okay.
It just comes up with the best prompts, and now it's coming up. It's helping me think about it in new ways. And also, like, we've been using Midjourney for years, and seeing the exponential nature of Midjourney is, to me, phenomenal. Like, even pre-ChatGPT, we've been using Midjourney. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because there's this idea that you have to understand the best prompt. But what I love doing is saying, hey, AI, this is what I love to build. This is an image. Or now you're seeing with new tools where it's like, this is a website.
Yeah.
This is an app.
Yeah.
Can you just build me a version of that? And it will come up with its own amazing prompt, right? Oh, this is the prompt that you need to include, right?
Okay.
So it's like, you just need to come up with the initial inspiration. It's not even a prompt. I hate using prompt because we feel like it's like some sort of you need to understand some sort of code. No, you just need to have the best idea possible and then see how you can go off and develop that, and getting the AI to help you with that. So I think the best skills that we could build in this new world are like ambitious ideas, ambitious goals, and ultimately like being a practitioner in developing, like knowing that the skill set is actually about knowing that everything is now at your fingertips. It's actually knowing that you can start building anything. That's an important skill set to have. It's like the knowledge that you can build anything, which most people don't know yet. But today you can build anything.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, no, I would have thought, but I'm not as well versed in AI as you are, that there's some value there in understanding what is the right question to ask. Whatever you want to call it, prompt, idea, inspiration for AI, there's still some human input that is needed there, right? And so
the original idea.
The original idea.
But I'm saying figuring out what the right prompt is. I just don't think that's. Maybe prompt's the wrong word.
Sure. Okay.
So I'm thinking about, when people think about like prompts, they think about what is the right question I should be asking the AI, which I think that's what I'm talking about. I don't think that's important.
I mean, you don't need to know it. You can use AI to come up with, I guess, questions and prompts is what you're saying.
Yeah, you can totally use it as a debate partner.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Use it as debate partner to come up with better questions to make your idea better. But I don't think you need it to come up. I don't think you need to be a great prompt engineer, as I would say. Just come up with a great idea.
Yeah.
I use this example in my keynotes, which is, let me give you a hypothetical scenario. Actually, let me give you the hypothetical scenario.
Okay.
Let's say generative AI existed in the late 1800s. Okay. And you had the Wright brothers, who were bicycle mechanics at the time. And they were given generative AI. And at that point, they would have been able to compile all the research and all the knowledge up until the late 1800s.
Okay.
Would they still be able to invent flight with generative AI at their fingertips?
Yeah, they would.
They would?
Yeah, because they did it without AI.
They did it without AI, but my belief is that they wouldn't. I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because what they would do is what many people do today. Is like, well, let me just ask AI to just give me the answer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so what generative AI would do at that point is it would look through all the scientific research and all the evidence up until that point and be like, actually, we've concluded that this is absolutely 100% impossible. Don't even look at this thing.
Yeah.
And they may have gotten discouraged by it and be like, you know what? Let's go focus on this bicycle thing.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we've been really good at.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, what they're going to do is they're going to ask AI for something, and AI is going to come up with an answer that will be counterintuitive, or it will contradict what they're actually thinking.
Sure.
And it might prevent us from actually taking those bold steps. Now, the Wright brothers could also say, not how do we make flight happen, but also how do we make a wing? Like, they would dissect that problem.
Yeah.
And maybe they would still be able to build flight just by dissecting those little problems. But my belief is that if they gave them a big idea like that, then they wouldn't be able to do it. And I bring up that example because AI will never, in my opinion, be more innovative than us. It will have more knowledge. It will be the smartest person in the room, but it won't be the most innovative. It can't be, because we have the context, we have the knowledge, we understand culture way more. There's something like about energy and culture that we understand that AI cannot. So that's my opinion.
It's interesting. So, do you know the story behind the Wright brothers? There was a competing group. Do you know about that?
No, what was that?
Yeah, there's a competing group. It was, well funded. It was someone that was like well versed in like engineering and all that stuff, and they were given, I forget how, they had significantly more resources, more money, more expertise than the Wright brothers did. And so I forget the exact who was involved in that scenario, but the author contrast. I think they shared this story of these two groups, and then they said, okay, well, which of these two groups do you think would have invented flight? And obviously it was the Wright brothers. And so it was interesting to me that you can have all the resources, you can have all of this knowledge, but you may not be successful because of whatever reason. Maybe it's not a imagination kind of thing, but there are other factors involved. Anyway, I thought that was kind of interesting to kind of contrast.
That is really interesting.
Within the group there.
That is really interesting.
Yeah.
Listen, man, this has been an amazing conversation. We had other dangerous ideas that you brought that we didn't get to, and
Sure.
I have to remind myself that like we need to shoot this like so that we can talk for 5 hours. Okay.
All right.
Because this is a tragedy that we're only talking for an hour. Let me just get to a fun question at the end that you had, dangerous idea.
Sure.
Which was how has traveling changed you?
Yes.
Why'd you ask that question? That idea.
I mean,
what are your travel go-tos, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I've seen lots of your videos. You're obviously in different places all the time. I imagine, but I mean, I didn't know all about your projects in consulting, but probably traveling a lot more now as a keynote speaker than maybe before. Has that changed you, I guess? And usually, I think for a typical person, traveling opens up, like you see other cultures, you experience different people and food and all these things. So I'm just curious to understand through your travels as a professional speaker, how has that kind of changed you or opened up your perspective in different ways?
That's a great question. Number one, by the way, I might travel. I don't think any normal person would look at my travel schedule and be like, this is psychotic. This is just crazy. And like, for example, last week I was in Hawaii.
Okay.
I went to Kuala Lumpur, then I went to Regina, then I went to Vancouver, back to Edmonton. I literally spent 48 hours in the air, just in the air, not in the airports, just in the air.
Okay.
This week I was I went to Michigan, then I went to the PA in Manitoba, got a driver service to drive me 7 hours to Saskatoon so I can take a connecting flight. The amount of travel in a car, in a plane is ridiculous.
Yes.
Okay? And the only superpower that I have is I have the ability to work anywhere. And that is my only superpower on the planet. I am a beast in the plane and in the car. I can work anywhere. So that is like so that is my superhuman skill. I wouldn't wish my travel schedule on my worst enemy. Unfortunately, because of that, I don't learn that much about cultures or travel when I'm there because I'm usually just locked in to my hotel room and I'm working.
You're working.
I'm
Okay.
working. I'm there for work. I'm there to deliver the greatest thing that they've ever seen in their entire life. And because of my dedication to it, I'm not out late. I'm not hanging out. I'm not looking at the sights and scenery. I'm locked in.
Okay.
But the beauty is I do get to talk to a lot of people from different countries and different communities, while sort of in my travels or the client. So that's great.
Yeah.
But I have no advice on like how to travel in the best way. I think the only travel advice I would have
Okay.
is learn how to fast. Learn how to intermittent fast.
Okay.
Because you don't want to be eating the stuff on the planes. It's gross in the airports. If you can't eat, don't eat. That's what I would say.
Okay.
And that would be my biggest advice because you have no idea when the delay is going to happen. You have no idea if you're gonna get food on the plane, if it's gonna be late, if something's gonna be open. Just learn to not eat, and that's the greatest advice. Any advice you have? I know you travel a lot too.
I don't travel as much as you do. The one thing that I found, but this is like everybody probably knows this already, is packing cubes.
Yeah,
That seems to be.
I gotta get those.
Yeah, you don't have packing cubes?
I gotta get those. I'm not a good packer.
Yeah, so I just found that it just helps organize and just make sure that you have all the things that you need when you're traveling. And the packing cubes really help for organization. So I find that is really good. Hydrating.
Hydrating.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah. Because on planes, as you probably know, it's really dry. And if you're speaking, you don't want to catch anything either. So yeah, hydrating is also important.
Hydrating is very important.
Yeah.
Listen, on that note, amazing episode, Wang. We had so many other dangerous ideas that we didn't get to, but we had such a good conversation that we couldn't get to all of it. But would love to have you back, as always, on the Dangerous Ideas pod. Hey, listen, rate, review, subscribe, whatever you got to do this pod. And follow Wang on LinkedIn and other places because he's putting out great content with one of the best writers on the planet. And we'll see you guys on the next one.